How long have you been here with this office?
It's coming up to a year now.
Right on. So did you show up before Joe and Rick took over? Or was that like right when they transferred?
Yeah. I think a little bit before me they took from me.
Yeah.
So they were always bosses, but they were barely.
Yeah, they were just turning over right then, yeah. Cool. That's great. Well, this is a exciting office. I mean, I've now been to, we were in San Francisco yesterday, now down here, Palo Alto, and Burlingame. So it's been fun to see all the different offices. I'm seriously jealous of everybody else's office. I think our Oakland one is the worst of all of them I've been to. Well, the parking, San Francisco's parking's not great. But like, the parking's way easier at almost every office. And then they're all a lot bigger than Oakland. Like, we only have like a couple of small private offices just like this, and then the rest of it's all very open space. So we have 2 private conference rooms, and then like along the back wall there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 very small like 1 desk rooms, and then it's like all open for the rest of them, which makes it good for team meetings and big events, but it makes it less so for actual parking.
People everywhere. It's just like
right. Yeah. We find that most, especially since COVID, most people haven't. Yeah.
It is hard to get people back there.
Yeah, I imagine, especially with you guys have all this space to work with, so yeah.
Well, how's everyone's Halloween decorating? That's my job.
Yeah.
Where do I rank from?
San Francisco is pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
No, these are great. Yeah, I don't know that I noticed too many in the other offices actually. I'll be in Oakland later this afternoon, but yeah, I hadn't thought about Halloween decorations. So right now.
That makes sense. We're having a Halloween party, that's the only reason.
Oh, fun.
You guys want to come by, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Yeah,
with
2:30.
all the agents are coming. Today's Thursday, right?
Yep.
Hi, Carly.
What do you think? Great. You need me to have like a microphone or something, or is it just, oh, right there. That's awesome. Perfect. Perfect. So we'll get going in just a minute. We're actually going to set up the recording so people can see this later after the fact. So just give us a few more minutes, please. I'm just joking. We're good? Cool. All right, good morning, welcome. Thanks for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad that we've got a few folks who showed up. I know we're recording this as well, so hopefully some people can get value out of it after the fact. To start, let me ask a question to the group. How many people here aspire to be average? I don't see any hands. Good, we're in the right room. Just checking. Just checking, right? We all want to be above average, right?
Yeah.
How do we do that? What's, just throw it out there. What's the thing that separates average from exceptional, from the people who are in the top 1%, top 10%, versus the people in the middle, or heaven forbid at the bottom? What's the difference? Are they smarter? Are they more skilled? What's the answer?
Mindset.
Bingo. It's your mindset, right? It's what happens between your ears. It's the thing that you have utter control over every single day. It's the thing that gives you your edge. It creates your thoughts, which creates your emotions, which creates your actions, right? We've all been to conferences. We've all heard this. So why then is it so hard to develop and do that? That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to hopefully give you a few nuggets, a few ideas, a few things that can rattle around inside you as you go into the weekend and into your goal setting for 2024 that will hopefully start to help you figure out what that mindset looks like for you and then how you can apply that into your business now and going forward in the future. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Struzyna. I'm with the Gunderman Group out of the Oakland, Alameda office. My wife Kristen's here as well. And we work in sort of Alameda, Oakland, Berkeley, all of that kind of area, Piedmont. So if you ever have any clients that you don't want to trek up there, we'd be happy to serve them. And I'll show you what I am about and hopefully, more importantly, give you some value today so that you can serve your clients, your family, your people going forward into the new year and beyond. All right? So I want to tell you what this isn't this morning. I'm not going to stand up here and pretend like I do all of this perfectly. I'm not going to tell you that I'm some example, some perfect model that you need to follow. What I am is someone who has spent 12 years in a rowing career working on my mindset, working on my body physically, mentally, emotionally to achieve something that very few people are able to achieve. I am working on this stuff just as much as anyone else in this room. So this is as much about me talking to me as it is I'm talking to you. So I don't want you to put me on this pedestal that I'm some perfect person to emulate. I'm also not going to tell you everything you're doing wrong. I'm not going to point those things out. I'm going to give you some stuff. If it works for you, take it and run with it. If not, leave it, and you can walk out the door without it. But we're going to go for about 40 minutes. We're going to cover some topics. I'm going to try to peel some layers back of this onion, this thing we call mindset, and I'm going to share with you the way that I think about it. And I wanted to share with you before there, I want to give you context of where I came from. So I found the sport of rowing in 2004. I was the shortest kid, one of the smallest kids on the team. I tried almost every other sport there was through football and basketball and all that sort of thing, and nothing quite clicked. I was late to grow. I was one of the shorter, smaller guys. And if you knew me then, you wouldn't have thought that guy's going to the Olympics for a major Olympic sport, right? That wouldn't have crossed your mind at the time. So these are literally pictures of me in my first year of rowing, not particularly special or exciting, but something inside of me knew personally that I had what it took to be successful at this sport. There was just something there, a belief in myself, if you will, which yielded a really fairly amazing track record in the sport of rowing. I won several national championships with the University of Washington. I was on some national, Pac-12 championships, the senior and under 23 national team for the United States, and then of course the Olympic team in 2016. So, you know, from that young person in 2004 through a 12-year career, was able to do some things that were pretty exciting. This is all outcomes. This is all results. This isn't how they came forward. This isn't how they came into being, right? This is like how many houses you sell, right? And in fact, hold on. And in fact, we'll talk about that in a second. But outcomes are this kind of thing: achievements, goals, crossing finish lines, winning medals, hitting, production results. The question is, how do we do it, right? How do we get there when, even though we may not be the biggest, the smartest, the strongest, the fastest, how do we still create those results for ourselves? And to prove to you that I was not the tallest guy, this is me, and these are two of my teammates, right? I was almost always the shortest guy in every single boat I ever competed in, from that first year rowing in 2004 all the way to the 2016 Olympics. I was never the tallest, never the biggest, never the heaviest, never any of those objective measures, but I was definitely one of the strongest and one of the more successful athletes in every boat. You wanted me in your boat, just like I wanted those guys, all right? Despite the height difference. So fast forward into real estate, I got into the industry in 2017, and this is just a quick snapshot of my results so far in this business. I started doing, in 2017, sitting at my kitchen table making cold calls, and I ended up selling just shy of $4 million of real estate in 6 units. Not terribly exciting, not terribly amazing, right? The difference is I took that mindset, this Olympic mindset that we're going to talk about here, and I was thinking, as I'm here in 2017, I was trying to act like this person down here from 2022 and 2023. I saw something moving forward that wasn't there, wasn't showing up in the results, and took multiple years to show up in the actual outcomes. And it could have been one of those things where I got to 2018, it's like, this isn't for me, I'm not making very much money, I don't know if this is the thing I want to do forever, right? So the mindset is what got here. Like, it started as very sort of meh, right? But it progressed and it kept going. And over time, that's the thing that separates the average from the 1%, from the top, right? And so that's what we're going to start to get into here now. I want to start by talking about this concept of standards. We all have them, but what are they? A lot of people talk about goal setting, right? Goal setting would be like, I want to sell $50 million of real estate next year. That's a goal, right? But what are the standards that are going to support that goal? What are the things that you have non-negotiable in your life that will help you achieve that outcome that you seek, right? So let me ask this to the group. What's a standard that somebody has for themselves? Like, what does standard mean to you? Let me ask that a different way. What does standard mean to someone? Just raise your hand or shout it out. What's a standard to you?
Number of appointments a week.
So number of appointments a week. That's good, but how do you get those appointments?
Being disciplined and punctual in whatever you are doing.
Yep.
Following the routine or calendar in a simple way.
Yep. So so what I'm hearing is like setting a standard for yourself, setting something for yourself, and then holding yourself accountable to doing that, right? So that is a standard, right? It's like the thing inside of you internally that is just, it's the way you show up in the world. It's the way you operate. You know, this morning I woke up and I wasn't feeling particularly great. I didn't necessarily want to get out of bed. And it took me a while to get out of bed this morning. And I could have just as easily said, I'm feeling a little sick today. I don't really want to do this. But my standard said I made a commitment. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to put on some clothes. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to drive down here and I'm going to share this message with you all, even though I didn't feel like it. So I think that's the difference of standards. When you don't feel like doing something, what do? Okay? You always, so let me start with the definition first, and then I'll get into what I was about to say. There are two, if you Google the word standards, Google will spit out this: a level of quality or attainment, and the idea of a thing used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluations. Okay? That's what Google says. What I say is that standards equal minimums. You always fall back to the level of your standards. You rarely rise to the level of your aspirations, right? When rubber meets the road, when it gets hard, when you don't feel like it, when it's raining out or it's too hot or too cold or whatever, when it's uncomfortable, that's where you get to exercise your standards. That's where those things show up, and that's how they show up, right? We had this concept when we were rowing called the gold medal standard. The gold medal standard was we took in every boat class, because there's 1-person boats all the way up to 8-person boats. And there was a world record time for every single boat class. And we would take that world record time and say, if you're at full race pace, 100% all out, you need to be aiming to hit world record pace or better in your training. Now, if we were saying, because we race at about 38 strokes a minute, if we were doing a different type of workout and we were at, say, 30 or 28 strokes a minute, we would adjust accordingly and bring that standard down to a level for 30 strokes a minute. And we would say that's the accountability, that's the minimum, that's the expectation, right? And so we would always hold ourselves to that gold medal level, because if you are someone who's going into a race and you know that you've trained at the world record level, you're going to show up a lot different than if you were just like training and hoping and praying that it goes well on race day. So we raised our standards so high that even if we came in short, theoretically, we'd still be right in the mix, right? Goal setting. So once you've got your standards and you know what your standards are, now you can start to think about goals. How does that physically show up for you? What outcomes do you seek, right? So a goal, since we're starting to, and we're deeper into Q4 at this point, and we're all starting to think about next year, I'm going to give you this. A goal needs to be specific, it needs to be measurable, and it needs to be visible. Specific, meaning I want to sell 50 houses next year. That's pretty specific, right? Measurable. It's got a number attached to it. You know when you've achieved it, or you know when you're getting closer. I want to weigh X. I want to be able to run this fast. I want to sell this many houses. You know, I want to make this much income. I want to spend this many weeks on vacation with my family, right? It's either you did it or you didn't. You can track it too. You can keep a spreadsheet that says, I'm halfway. If you're just like, I want to sell more houses, well, more houses than what? One more house is more houses, but you might actually make less money if you're doing one more house, right? You might give away the commission or something, right? But if you had that specific goal, that specific outcome, and you were tracking it, and you had it visible all the time, this is critical. It's not up here anymore. It's on paper. It's on your laptop. It's on your phone. It's physically in a place where you can engage with it. Now your standards rise. You start to think, how do I hit these things? And you bring up your standard, and you bring up your actions, and you bring up your activities as a result. Right? Pro tip, by the way, make your goals your passwords. So if you've got an income goal, you've got a sales goal, whatever it is, make that your password to your computer, to your phone, to your email, whatever. So every time you type it in, you're engaging with it physically. I wholeheartedly believe that a goal should scare you and it should push you. If I came to you and said, I have a goal of next year selling 20 houses, but you knew that I was always selling 30 every year, you'd probably laugh at me, or you'd probably think like, what's going on with this guy, right? If you're setting goals that are easy to achieve, it's never going to push you to be better. It's never going to increase your outcomes, and it's never going to get you into a world where you ultimately want to live, right? They should push you to grow. That's what we do here at Keller Williams, is we grow, right? And once you start to have these push goals, these things where you haven't achieved something yet, and you go out and you get them, it's going to start to trickle down into the daily, weekly actions, like appointments set, or phone calls you make, or open houses you host. It's going to become really clear what those things are, right? And so if you are somebody who sets that goal and pushes yourself for more, for something bigger or greater, you then have the standard. That's the standard. I have actions and activities that I need to do every single day, like go to practice in my case, like lift a certain amount of weights, like spend a certain amount of minutes in a heart rate zone, to use a rowing analogy. You're then going to see that progress and those results on a daily and weekly basis, and then quarterly, monthly, yearly, etc., right? And then I always believe it's important to set a goal that is more than you did last year. That's the goal, right? If you've hit it, it's no longer a goal, it's a new standard, it's a new level that you are attainable to hit. Some of us will sell less this year than last year, certainly. Some of us will make less money than we did last year, of course. But it's always possible to set the goal to do more, right? And if you set the goal of doing more for next year than you did this year, and you come up short, then maybe you're even for the 2 years. But if you set the goal for next year to do less and you come up short, you're definitely doing worse and you're making a lot less money. And that's, at the end of the year, not going to feel very good, right? This photo is the finish line of the 2010 National Championship race in New Jersey. This is the finish line. This is Cal Berkeley, and this is my boat. That's me, right there. We lost by about 2 feet. This was Cal and Washington are one of the oldest collegiate rivalries in the United States. They've been racing each other for over 100 years. It's among the oldest, sporting rivalries, except for what's going on in England rowing, because there's some races that have been going on for nearly 200 years over there. But older than football, older than basketball, older than all of these. So there's a lot riding history-wise between these two schools, right? And we lost by half a deck, which is a quarter second, which is over the course of a race, like a rounding error, right? It's a 5.5 minute race. It comes down to a quarter second. This year, we had a goal. In 2010, we had a goal of winning the national championship, winning the IRA. All right. We all knew that that's what we were trying to do. We had done it the year before. That's what we wanted. But we ended up graduating a number of our seniors from 2009 when we won. And we started, some of us younger guys started stepping up into leadership and started being the older guys that people look to. And because we had this goal in mind, we acted and reacted a certain way. What you can't see in this photo is that these two guys, who were those two tall guys I showed you a few slides ago, our two biggest guys, both of them ended up being in the hospital with IVs in their arms for about 3 or 4 days total because they got sick and they were roommates and they got a bug of some kind on the airplane. So needless to say, 2 of our best guys were out for a 4 days of the basically week prep we were out on the East Coast. You think that made a difference between here and here? Definitely, 100%. So we went back to the boathouse, we went back to Seattle, and thought through, each of us individually and then as a team, thought through like what happened, like why did we not hit our goal? Because we did all the work, right? We did everything, we were there, we were right there, right? This is about as close as it can possibly be. What happened was we realized that our standard wasn't high enough so that if something tragic like these guys go into the hospital in an IV and one of them almost couldn't race the regatta and we almost had to swap the lineup around, we realized that we did do enough work to win, but we left it up to chance. And so what we decided to do the next year was raise the standard so high that if we still had to get these two guys into the hospital, days before the national championship, or we had to swap guys from our lower boats up into the upper boats, we would raise the bar so high that there was no chance that we would lose. This is the outcome from the next year. 1 year later, same race course. This is our boat. This is the race for second place. Thank you. But the visual here is we were so far out in front because we had raised that standard so high that there was we knew the race was for second place. They didn't know it, but we did. And the way we showed up to that regatta was so different than the year before that it was like, didn't matter how the heat went, didn't matter how the repechage went, didn't matter how the semifinal went. This was what we were training for. This was the 5.5 minutes that the standard was so high for that there was no chance that we weren't going to have that result. And even if someone got sick, back the boat up halfway, we're still out in front by half a length, which is about 1.5 seconds, which is still a large margin. So there was so much, the bar got raised so high with that standard, and then the goal on top of that it was really just who's going to be second place. And you can see there's these 3 boats that are really tight. Yeah, and that's Cal getting third, by the way. So, now we're going to start talking about a little more tactical, practical, rubber meeting road stuff here. So, when I was an athlete, we did things like, I call it, be a student, keep score, right? It's easy in athletics to do this. You can talk about how many minutes in the heart rate zone you're at, how much weight you lift, how long you train every day, the results from your week over week, month over month. If you do the same workout every single week for 3 months in a row, you can just record that and track the progress, right? Well, doing that in real estate can show up like this. You have a spreadsheet of watching all of the houses that you've toured. You make a prediction. You say, what's it going to sell for? And then a month later, when it closes, you track it, even if you don't have a buyer, right? How close am I? Am I within 1% regularly, or am I 4% off all the time? Now I know something about my skill set. How many offers are you writing? What is the total outcome, right? Am I getting these offers? For my clients, how many offers are my average clients writing? Or how many offers is my average listing getting versus the competition, right? You can track these things. Conversion ratios, appointments met, appointments held, appointments to signed listings, listings to closings, right? We can be a student of this stuff. We can also find out from our colleagues what their ratios are, what the top producers are doing, how many units they're selling, and what their ratios are to benchmark ourselves towards that, right? Accepted offers, profit and loss, balance sheets, like this is how you keep score in business and in real estate. And there's so many more ways to do it other than just that, but those are the examples that I can give you as you start to think about your 2024 goals. And if you're not tracking some of these things, you're not being a student, and you're going to have a hard time finding out the way to make
your goals and your standards rise to the level that you want them to for next year. Right? These are photos of, let's see, this one, I told you about gold medal standard. This is a screenshot from a 1 week of training. We would do this thing called Bridge to Pit. It was a 4,000 meter race from a bridge literally down the estuary to the end where you can't row anymore. And we do the same thing at least once a week, if not more. And the coach would then take our times, rank us, and this would go out the day after, or the afternoon after we did the race every single week, like clockwork, right? And so literally, if you're within 3% of the gold medal standard, you get a green. If you're within 3 to 5%, you get a yellow. And that over time showed you how likely you were to get funded for training, like getting money to actually compensate you for training in some capacity. Like results were directly tied to, do I get, my plane ticket paid for to trials or not? Do I get my, stipend to eat, right? Likewise, down here, this is like little screenshots from last year. We have a lot of tracking spreadsheets, but this is showing exactly where our closings are coming from. I can tell you exactly, sphere of influence was big. It was almost half of our closings last year. We had YouTube. We had one closing directly from our YouTube channel, which has started to grow a little bit more. Now we're up to a couple, right? I know exactly where they're coming from. And then over here, what's my listings by buyers? How many offers is my average client writing? 2.5. We've actually knocked that down this year. We're closer to, I think we're at or just below 2. 1.8 as of this year, right? And then how many houses are we touring with them on average? So that when I get in front of a buyer client, I can tell them on average, we're going to go see 8 houses together and write 2.5 offers. It's kind of a compelling reason to work with me as opposed to just anyone else out there, right? So if you know this data, it not only helps you run your business and increase your skill set, but it also helps you convert, because now you sound like a professional. You show up differently because your standard is a lot higher than the average. Vision. The thing that a lot of people fail to do, in my opinion, is believe they can and expect to win, right? If you show up at the starting line of a race, I don't care what kind of race it is, and you think to yourself immediately, this is going to suck, I'm going to do terribly, everyone else is so much faster than me, 100% guarantee no matter how much preparation you put into that race, you are not going to do that well. And you're definitely not going to beat those other people, right? We're all nodding, right? This makes sense, right? Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Pretty much what we're talking about. You may or may not win the race in the end, but if you don't expect to, you definitely won't. So why not show up expecting to? Acting as if you like thinking back to that 2017 version of me with my brand new fresh printed license where I sold $4 million. If I started to think of myself as a $4 million salesperson, probably would have stayed there. I saw myself as a $20, $30, $50 million salesperson, even then. And I started acting like those people to the extent that I could. There's only, you got to fake it till you make it to some degree. And there's an element in there that is, you have to sort of trick yourself into this to some degree, but there's things that you can do as a person if you're not selling the amount that you want, like tracking, like being a professional, like raising your standard, raising your skill set that the top producers do, that you can also do, even if you only have 1 or 2 clients, right? You can still act as if. A lot of people think, I'll get my books together when I make enough money to. I will do my CRM when I have enough clients to put in a CRM versus the 2 or 3 that I have currently, right? But if you treat those 2 or 3 clients like you had 50 clients, you'd act very differently. This is a fun exercise. Let me ask you a question. If I came in here this morning and I held up a check for $10 million and I could write it to you as cashier's check so you know the money's there, and I gave that to you, how would you feel? I mean, think about that for a second. Just like if $10 million dumps right in your deposit, by noon today. I'm seeing a lot of grins and a lot of smiles, right? Okay. What if I said same thing? I can give you $10 million by noon today. Catch is you don't get to wake up tomorrow. Are you going to take the 10 million?
No.
So you waking up tomorrow is worth $10 million, is what you just told me. So why don't you act like it? We are all guilty of this, myself included. But if you act like your day is worth $10 million, you're going to show up differently. We all get choices, right? We all get to make decisions on how we wake up, how we spend our time, with whom we spend our time, and the attitude we bring to all of that, right? The good news is you only get 2 types of choices. You get easy choices and you get hard choices, right? We can all, what's an easy choice that people think they can make? Just throw something out there. What's an easy choice?
Sleeping.
Sleep in. It's easier to sleep in and press snooze, right? What's the hard choice?
Being consistent every day without making needs.
Being consistent every day, delaying the gratification. What's another easy choice? Yeah, your diet, right? What you eat. That's an example, sure. What's the hard choice? Eating salads? I think salads are pretty easy at this point, but right.
Yeah.
But like making a decision on nutrition versus flavor, potentially, right? That's kind of an example, right? So the good news is you get easy choices or hard choices, and the really good news is every single time you make a choice, you have these 2 options. That's it. That's all. There's always the easy version and there's the hard version. The problem is with these choices is there's things called consequences. There's outcomes, right? So when you make the easy choice, you get the hard life. The good news is that when you make the hard choice, you get the easy life. What am I talking about? It's hard to go knock on doors. I think we can all agree. That's a harder activity than not doing it. But if you knock on enough doors, you're going to eventually meet people who want to sell or refer you someone who might want to sell or buy, therefore making your life a little easier. If you want to get up and work out and hit your fitness goals, that's hard. It's physically uncomfortable. You got to maybe get up early. You got to go exert. You got to sweat. It's hard, right? But then you get the fitness, you get the health, you get the things that you want on the outcome on the back end, which makes your life a little easier, right? We all get these choices on a daily basis. That's where I'm going with this. So if you do nothing else other than remember this slide, you'll probably have taken ground towards your standards and your goals going forward here. The people who you surround yourself with are absolutely critically important. The people in this office who took the time to show up to a talk called Olympic Mindset are people you want to be around as a starting point. But you also need to think about who are your influences on your team, your coaches, your family, your friends. Who's your team? Who are the people who are around you all the time? This is a picture, that race in 2011 where we won by a lot. This is that entire group. I told you we raised the standard. Every single boat won gold medal that we entered, with one exception who got a silver medal. And that's the group that we took and showed up and got the results that we wanted, because that standard was so high and we all knew what we were trying to achieve, right? Get around people who inspire and push you. This may be uncomfortable because it might mean you have to make different choices around with who you surround yourself with. Whether it might be moving on from a coach or a team leader, it might mean you have to go fly, spend some money, join a mastermind, go to family reunion, go to mega camp, go to some of these things, to up-level the people you're around. It might mean that you have to spend a little less time with friends or family. Maybe. I don't know. You tell me. Because you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We are social creatures. We all want to be liked and included, and we all want to have someone validate us, right? So we do things consciously or subconsciously to fit in, to get liked, social media, to get likes on social media, to get the congratulatory call or text from a friend because you did something. That feels good to us. We like it. But there's a force here that is pushing you towards comfort, right? People want, if you've got people who want you to be comfortable, they're going to say, oh, why are you working on Saturday? Come hang out with us. Why are you doing that open house? Oh, that's so this or that, right? We all have those people in our worlds who don't support our goals. And if you let those people sit there and be in your life for long enough, whether it's a team leader, a coach, a colleague, a coworker, whatever, that's going to affect your outcomes. I'm not saying dump your friends. I'm not saying don't talk to your family. I'm just saying be conscious of who those people are and what effect they have on you in your mindset, in your standards. Priority. We've got a few more slides here and we'll be done not too long. You only get one priority, which is why I said priority, not priorities, right? At the end of the day, something wins. Going to this idea of comfort. If my priority is comfort, at the end of the day, when I look back, I'm probably not going to have either worked out or worked out as hard, right? I'm probably going to have done a couple of text messages as opposed to pick the phone call up and have a hard conversation. I'm probably not going to track my income. I'm not going to track my expenses because I don't want to look at it because it's not what I want it to be, right? At the end of the day, something wins. The question is what? What wins? You only get one priority because something wins at the end of it. If you have multiple, we say we have 3 priorities, which is, your family, your business, and your health. When push comes to shove, something's going to prevail, right? Something's going to get, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you just have to recognize that something will win. At the end of the day, we only get 24 hours to do things, right? When I was rowing, my priority was make the Olympic team. Once that was accomplished, win a gold medal. Made the Olympic team, didn't win the gold medal. But the good news is that priority made decisions for me. I didn't go to a lot of weddings. I was supposed to be the best man in someone's wedding. I couldn't go because it was right during the Olympic cycle. Just made the decision. I was like, dude, if you want me there after Rio, I'm all there. He wanted to get married before that. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It hurt the friendship, certainly, but the priority was the priority, right? You go to sleep at a certain time. You wake up at a certain time. You eat certain things. You don't eat other things, right? Decisions get made for you when you set a priority. Just like if your priority is your family, you might not take the open house on the weekend, and that's fine. But just know what the priority is and be very clear and conscious on what it is. Those priorities get to make the decisions for you. And like I said, the problem isn't that we don't have enough time. How many of us have said, I don't have time for that? Right? That's a false statement. The correct statement is, it's not a priority to me. right? We all have the same amount of time. When you say, I don't have enough time, you're lying, right? Because we all get 24 hours. We all get 160 hours a week, right? Or 68 or whatever it is. Point is, we all have the same amount. So to say you have less than someone else isn't true. It's just like, that's how the universe works, right? But what you should say is like, that's not a priority to me. Or say it to yourself, whatever. But that's what you're saying. And that's cool. Like, I've had times when I've played phone tag with friends for months trying to catch up. And at the end of the day, it's not that we don't have time to connect, it's just we haven't made it a priority enough to connect. We've all had that experience, right? And that's okay. It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying it's wrong, no judgment, but just know what it is as opposed to what it isn't. I had this concept of regret tumble around in my brain for, gosh, 3 years during my last 3 years of my rowing cycle. In 2014, I had a series of selection regattas that went very poorly. We did not do well. We didn't qualify for the team, and we didn't make the World Championships that year. Big disappointment, because we made the team the year before, we did okay, but we were on the up, and we didn't make it. And I thought very seriously about retiring in that moment. And, what I realized was that as an athlete, ultimately I'm going to have a shelf life. I don't get forever to achieve this goal. At some point, my body's not going to be able to keep up with the 24-year-old kids who are coming out of college fresh, right? It's just not going to happen. And so I thought about this, and I said, if I'm, in my 40s, where I for sure cannot compete with these guys anymore, can I look myself in the mirror knowing the door has closed on that forever and say you did your best, no regrets? And the answer was no. I couldn't do that. And so we all get a certain number of attempts at something, right? And we all get a certain number of trips around the sun, years on this planet, days in the office, etc. So the question is, what are you going to think about when you're down the road sometime in the future, knowing you could have done something, but you did or you didn't? Are you going to feel good about the way you spent your day today, your week, your year, right? That regret, if some of this positive stuff isn't enough, that was enough for me to push me to keep going, right? There's always an opportunity to build your business, but do you want to get down the road 10 more years and say, shit, if I would have started, if I would have bought that investment property 10 years ago, where would I be? If I would have gone out and made more calls every single day for the last 10 years, where would my business be? If I would have spent more time with my family, where would my family be, right? All we have is now, today, and if you think about it through the lens of the future looking back, it can be a very powerful experience for you to look at the current state and the current decisions, the current standards that you have, and say, is this good enough? Am I willing to accept the outcomes that come with that decision? I read this quote. I think this was from one of my favorite lenders. He does a weekly newsletter, and he put this in: people who don't seriously consider their future will someday find their yesterday full of regret. We only get today, but assuming, that the sun comes up tomorrow, we can plan for that, generally speaking, and I think we should. But if you don't think about that future person, the future you looking back in the bathroom mirror, that person's going to look back at you someday and be like, why didn't you do it? And finally, there's this concept of the arena that I love. And I don't know how many of you have heard this quote or this poem. I can't really improve upon it, which is why it's just up here like this. I'm going to read a part of this because I think it's so powerful. It's known as the man in the arena. It's an excerpt from Theodore Roosevelt's speech back in 1910, so over 100 years ago now, and it goes like this. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, and who comes up short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, and who is best known in the end, the triumph of the high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never knew victory or defeat. Taking your standards and putting them into practice, regardless of what everyone else says, is the way to have no regret and to have the outcomes in the life you want. So to conclude, when you set a high standard for yourself, you let that be the basis, the foundation of your goals. You track, you be a student, you gamify your business and your life. You believe you can, you make the hard choices, you create a team around you that supports your goal, you set a priority, no regret, and you get in the arena. That is how you build an Olympic mindset. Thank you. And if you want to stay connected with me and Kristen, here's all of our information. We'd love to be in touch with you if we can ever serve you or your clients up in the Oakland area. We'd be honored, and we hope to just stay in touch with you all as Keller Williams Associates, more importantly. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
What's that?
YouTube channel?
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
It's just our names. If you type that in, Hans and Kristen Struzyna, just like that. I guess it's not spelled all the way. Yeah, if you just type that in, you'll find us.